Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Golden Nugget Podcast. Woo! So today is our 9th official episode. Woo! I feel like we're professionals at this point now. So today we have Sarah and Phil joining us. Thank you so much for being here, y'all. My name is Deanna Golden. I am the CEO and founder of The Path to Recovered.
And I'm Stephanie Brown, her co-host.
Yeah. And today is another guest speaker day where we're just kind of diving into a little bit more on our guest recovery, their journey through recovery, what they've experienced, and just a little bit of knowledge to help you guys out on your recovery journey. So we'll start out with Sarah today.
Good. Hi.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Stephanie, Deanna, for having us here. That's really cool. Appreciate it.
Yeah, of course.
We appreciate being here for
sure.
Yeah.
I always love, Sarah and I and Phil, we're all in this, recovery journey together. And I hear what y'all have to say all the time. And I'm just like, oh my God, sometimes it's so profound. I'm like, yes, it's so hard, I think, to really add in that depth of a message and a little bit of comedy. And I was telling Stephanie before you got here, I was like, Sarah's the funny one. I always just laugh all the time. She's so funny. And, I think if we can't laugh at ourselves, there's a big problem, right?
Absolutely, for sure. Yeah.
I might laugh inappropriately sometimes,
Me
like
too.
somebody's tragic moment and I'm laughing. And it's just because I can relate to it so much because I know what it's like to be there. I feel that. And I'm like, oh my gosh, yes, me too. Can I raise my hand? So Stephanie, you had a couple of questions to lead us off?
Yeah. So wanted to kind of start with Sarah and get a little bit more information. I know when we talked a little bit before we started the podcast, you had mentioned that you had tried, a few things to get started in your recovery, but you hadn't found that one thing to really bring it all together for you. So I wanted to hear a little bit more about what that was that really made you successful.
I had been struggling with drinking, not drinking for a lot of years. And what I knew and had met a lot of, and I think we all kind of know, the sober but not happy about it, pull yourself up, get yourself together. And I would sort of criticize myself in the third person. It's like, oh, Sarah Jean, you suck. Like, get it together. like straighten up. Like, really, seriously, what is wrong with you? And so there was a lot of self-will driven. I'm going to go to church more, and I will be there early, and I will volunteer for this, and I will drag my, family through all this stuff. And it was just try harder. And at some point, I had tried group therapy and individual therapy. My work had sent me off and said, you need some help, go talk to this person. I had tried everything I thought that there was to try. And I was still drinking. And I was still crying about it, and I was still embarrassed and fighting against this notion, well, if you loved your kid, well, if you loved your job, well, if you loved your family, you wouldn't keep doing this to them. And I would agree with people, and I would smile, and I would nod, but in here, I know for a fact that I love my family, I love my church, I love my job, I love my kid way more than I love drinking. And to know that and feel that and be resigned to the fact that at night alone in my house on the couch with nobody looking, I can't not drink. I was living alone at one point. I was living alone with just my young daughter at one point, and yet would still hide alcohol around the house. From who? Who am I hiding it from? it's just like, well, I guess if I can't find it, it's not a problem. But then, at some point, and usually, maybe I could stay sober for a day or two, but that was rare. It was usually every day. oh, you suck. And it was just,
Yeah.
you know, it's like when you put a quarter in that little Make-A-Wish foundation thing, and it starts spinning, and it was just like, I was getting flushed down the toilet, you know, spiritually, but also like seriously. So here's the big thing that changed. Through all of this, I'm going to try harder. I'm going to do better. I'm going to get it together. I'm going to pull it together. I'm going to cut it out. I kind of broke. And I knew a guy. We all know tons of folks who are sober but not happy about it.
Yeah,
you know, like the person's just like, they're sober, they're at work, but they're like snapping at you. And I'm like, you know, they call it like dry or whatever. And I knew, particularly being in the military for, I think, 18 years at that point, I knew a lot of dry people.
Interesting.
I knew one sober and happy about it guy. And he was fun and hilarious, and he drank Diet Cokes, and he like could go to bars, and he could shoot pool, and he could go watch music. And I just thought, that's crazy that he can
free.
go where people are drunk and with his Diet Coke and like have a riot. So I called him, and I just said help. And he said there's a group of us, and we stay sober, and if other people want to get sober, you know, we try to help them out, but only if they want it and need it. And I had this idea that there was going to be some kind of vacuum cleaner sales pitch. You know?
They were going to try to get you to buy something.
Right.
So get their set of knives, right?
So it's like, what am I signing up for here? And it was, and just the way he put it to me, it was like, you need to be knocking on our door. We're not going to chase you down. Like, if you want this, we'll do anything to help you out. But if you don't, peace, you're a big girl, do you know? You.
Well, because we all know that, you know, there's like some certain piece where it's like, you know, maybe my family wants me to get sober, or maybe my friends want me to get sober, or maybe my job's like on my back, you got to get sober. And I cannot solely get sober for those things. Like, I have to, what he's saying is you got to want it. You got to want it and need it. Nobody's going to force you to do this.
And I had gotten sober for everybody else for about 5 minutes, and then blown it up worse.
Yeah.
So what was really, really different about that gentleman and the main lady that he kind of assigned to help me, be my mentor, I guess you could say, was that they were really focused on the let's give up trying to fix ourselves part.
Okay.
Let's focus on helping other people. And in the meantime, it's like God's going to come in the back door and fix us. If I have to make a decision to not drink, I will be at either the liquor store or the 7-Eleven or the bar in 5 minutes. It's how I go. It's like, I'm never doing this again. It like literally takes that long.
Yeah.
He's like, we're going to decide to help people. And I'm like, that's not going to work. I have volunteered at the food bank. That's not going to work.
Yeah.
And he's like, but I didn't really have anything left to try. I thought I really think I had tried everything. So I was like, roger that. And so we got to work volunteering at Austin Street Shelter, working with the homeless, delivering groceries from the food bank to actual humans.
Not just putting it in a
like
bag.
putting cans on the shelf, which is all good and important.
Yeah.
But it was in the bringing the food to people who needed it more. That it was in the helping other people.
Right.
That God got in the back door. When I had come straight at God, fix me, fix me, fix me, nothing changed. When I said, what can I do for your kids? Everything changed. And so it kind of turned me from this victim of my circumstances into kind of the responsible grown-up I'd always wanted to be. But here's the weird thing is I got like friends out of it.
That's awesome.
And I wasn't expecting that. God got me sober.
Yeah.
I quit fighting and gave up instead of continuing to try to get stronger and try harder. And so the more I worry about, doing the right thing by other people and being a good employee, being a good mom, being a good wife, being a good friend, being helpful. The more I focus on how can I be helpful to other people, the more I feel like God fixes me while I'm not paying attention. 'Cause deciding not to drink will fail. Sarah will fail.
Yeah.
Sarah will... While I'm swearing and promising I will never do it again, I look up and I'm like, how am I in goody parking lot instead of my house?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's just, no, I can't.
Well, and it wasn't just you finding this mentor and then y'all go feeding the homeless. There was a lot of work that you did in between that, right? And that's the thing too, is like what I thought is like when somebody told me I was selfish, I was like, well, I'll just be selfless. I'll just go out and hold the door for everybody. I'll let people over in traffic. I'll go feed the needy and my problem will be solved. And while all that stuff is really, really good, I still have to do all of the things that I know that I need to do to get out of the way of that connection with God. Right. Because that's the real problem, is that we're blocked from that connection that we needed so desperately. I tried church too, and it didn't work for me because, it didn't allow me to have that reliance on God that I needed. But you're so right. Getting around people who were like me, told me that their solution was going and helping other people who were alcoholics as well. And really when I help an alcoholic woman and I see her recover, it's like there's something in me that just clicks and I'm like, oh, that's me. Oh, that's me. Oh, I remember, you just celebrated 17 years.
Yes.
Yay.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And so the same feeling that you got back then when you first started helping people and the feeling you get today, is it the same or is it different?
It is the same. It is better. I was talking to a lady on the phone today, and something bad had happened to me professionally a couple of years ago. And you ever have that sort of slight or maybe perceived slight at work, and you're just like, and you care, and you kind of nurse the grudge a little bit, and you nurse the grudge. And a lady had called me today, and she's like, work, and there's this and that, and I'm like, about 5 years ago this happened, and I was able to kind of tell her the story about how I had been slighted at work, and as a result of that, I did not get a job that turned out to be a really bad job. I thought I wanted it. After I found out what the job was really about, it was a bad job. It was not a good job.
It was a blessing in disguise.
It was absolutely God doing something behind the scenes that I was completely unaware of. And he's like, you do not want that job. You're going to be working with this horribly mean customer, and you will be miserable because you'll never be able to make them happy, and you are too thin-skinned to always make your customer mad. So no, this is not the job for you. But at the time, I thought I wanted it. And they were like, no, this isn't right for you. And I'm like, you don't know me. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So 5 years down the road, I'm looking at the gentleman who did get that job, and he's really good at it. He has really thick skin, and but I'm just like, if I had to listen to somebody complain about my work every single day, I don't know what bless your heart, fella. So I was telling this lady on the phone today, I was like, you didn't get the job you thought you wanted, but I bet you got the job you needed. Let's see if God didn't do for you what you couldn't do for yourself, and just say, hey, you know what? You have a great skill set. This other job is probably perfect for your skill set. Sarah, that's what happened to me. Let's see if that isn't the situation for you. So in the helping somebody else, I get to stay sober, because then the things that used to eat my lunch become useful to helping somebody,
And who knew?
Who maybe is hurting.
Who knew that all of our trash and things that we went through our whole life and bad stuff and disappointment and, tragedy would actually help somebody and be useful. So cool. All right. So let's move on to the hubby, Phil.
All right.
So what did you want to ask Phil?
Just really similar. I know we had a discussion before that you, in the same way, had, tried several different things and really weren't finding what worked for you. So kind of two pieces. What were some of the things that you tried that didn't work? And then what was the solution that you found?
Sure. Yeah. Well, thanks, ladies, for having us here today. It's awesome to get to talk about recovery and the fact that there is a way out for folks, because for the longest time I didn't think that there was a way out of alcoholism. And so anyway, it's good to talk about it and get it out there and let people know. But I started drinking like most of my crowd at about the age of 15, and it was awesome, and I just had a blast with it, and I had many years of fun with it. I got arrested for the first time at 19 for alcoholic idiocy, and many more times after that, but for the most part, it was the fun way outweighed the bad consequences. And it really, I felt it helped me get out of my skin a lot. I was a pretty shy person. I really had a knot of tension in me all the time as a kid, and the first time I got enough in me to make a big difference, that knot of tension just released, and I just felt awesome. And it was just this new power that just flowed into my life, and I wanted more of it, and so my life became about the pursuit of that, along with other things as well, but that was just really sort of the catalyst, the gasoline to the motor that made things work for me, and it worked great for a long, long time, and it was a lot of fun. But then there came a point many years later, at some point in my 30s, I guess I would have to say, where the not just the consequences of the dumb things that I would do, but just they were starting to become a physical toll, and they were starting to become a mental toll. My body started breaking down because I was drinking a lot. I was drinking at that point heavily every day. I ran with a crowd of people that was the norm, and I saw people
supported the
out
behavior.
Like that.
We don't know anything about that.
It wasn't fun. It wasn't fun to hang out with teetotalers. I wanted to be with people that were doing what I was doing.
Yeah, for sure.
And so I got to know people that suffered serious enough consequences that they pulled up and they stopped. That either the wife was really going to leave for real, or they weren't going to have access to their kids, or they were going to lose a job that they really valued, something like that, and they stopped. And they weren't happy about it, but they quit and they pulled up. And in fact, they were kind of bitter about it, but nonetheless, they did what they had to do and stop the nonsense, And so I thought, well, at a certain point, I got to the point where I had to stop the nonsense. And I made that firm decision to quit for good and for all, and I meant it with every fiber of my being. So that was the first method that I tried, was willpower. And I was, I could do everything else. I was successful in business. I had my own company. I'd been doing well. Things were, life was good, except for this component of it, which was wrecking the rest of it. And so when I made that decision, and I stuck it for 30 whole days. And I just, every day I woke up, it was just a battle with drink, don't drink, drink, don't drink. And after a while, my experience around it was, when I'm applying my power of will to it, at some point I'm going to lose, At some point it's like this emotional barometer that just stacks and stacks and stacks, and at some point it becomes, for me, intolerable. And I know what's going to fix it. And
because that's a great point. Alcohol is your solution. That's the thing, is like, you saw those people who had not recovered but just weren't drinking, but all they're doing is taking the solution out, so we're left with a problem. And they're miserable. And like you said, we're going to go back to, if I'm miserable, I need something to fill that. I need something to make that go away, even if it's just in the moment.
Exactly. And it's just a matter of time for me when that's going to happen. So I tried a lot of other methods, some vitamin therapies I was telling you.
I want to know more about this vitamin therapy. What is that?
$500 on vitamins that were going to help
Oh my
me,
gosh.
get over my craving for liquor and get
so
sober.
So they pitched you and they're like, oh, you take these vitamins and you won't crave alcohol?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So it was like, I don't even remember where that came from. But I did that twice. I spent the $500 on the vitamin series 2 times.
Wow. You're like, it didn't work the first time.
Maybe the second time it'll work, And then as I started deteriorating more, and I went through this cycle for 12 years, so it was just getting worse and worse and worse. I'd quit, and then I'd go back to it, and I'd quit, and I'd go back to it. And the longest I could ever stick it was 45 days was the longest I ever stuck it, And it was just, and it was just getting progressively worse and worse and worse. And I was getting to a point where, I was having tremors in the morning, and I'd be at an early morning meeting, and I'd be deathly hungover, and at a conference table just getting reamed because of some way I hadn't performed my job, and just dying to get my hands on a glass of water, but knowing that I couldn't get it to my
put it
lips.
to your mouth. Yeah.
And so I was in a place of just pure desperation. And I was breaking down mentally and physically to a point that I just really didn't want to live anymore.
Yeah.
And
I get there.
It was pretty tragic. And so I met a group of, at this point in my life, for me, I was raised in a religious environment. I went to an Episcopal school for 12 years and did chapel 3 times a week, and so I was aware of dogma, and I was aware of what these notions of God and whatnot were, but I wasn't. I never really felt any of it and never really experienced it. It was just like part of, we do this, and then we go to math class, and then we go to biology, and we do whatever else.
It was just part of the routine. It wasn't necessarily something that
it was
you were
nothing
feeling.
that took root, and nothing I ever felt.
Right.
And at this point in my life, I was just as desperate as I've ever been, and met this group of people that were sober and happy about it, and I got to know them, and I got to know their stories, and I understood that they drank like I drank, they suffered like I suffered, yet they found a way out. They found a solution to this problem, and I wanted to know about it because all the other solutions that I tried hadn't worked.
And you saw all the miserable people, and you don't want to be like that.
No, not at all. And so that was attractive to me, and I stuck to these folks like glue, and I learned everything that I possibly could. And that's what saved my life, really. I came to understand that if I could do what they did, I could get what they got.
Right.
And they were willing to show me what it was that they had done. And it was what they were pursuing was a spiritual path of recovery, which I didn't know anything about. But when I first got to know these people, I really felt a presence of something happening that was speaking through them to me, that it was more powerful than just a human conversation. And that was the first time in my life I'd ever been aware of something
bigger than you. That it sounds like a cool spiritual experience. And I've had that too in my life. It's like when I'm just like talking to somebody and I just feel that just power, I did the podcast with Lewis a couple of podcasts ago, and he's like, it's like when I go and I talk to somebody and God puts the power in me and it's a flow into the power, through me to them. And then when I leave, the power's still there. And it's inside me, and I'm like, oh, I still feel that way.
And it was incredible. And it really filled me with hope for the first time.
Nice.
I mean, sincere hope. And so I did what they did, and I learned what they had to teach me. And there was a lot of work involved, but I was willing to do it. It wasn't that difficult, because what I found was that the desperation just drove me to be able to do what I needed to do. And I learned a lot about how I'd been in the world, and a lot about how I had treated people in my life, and a lot about what had motivated me, and I came to learn that it was about me.
Yeah.
It was all about me, and I never, you were saying earlier about, I'm kind of a magnanimous person, and I help people and whatever, and I felt like that, but when I really, it's like I'll do somebody a favor, but I would always expect something in return.
They owe me. Oh, for sure they owe me. If I do you a favor, you owe me. That's how I used to believe all the time. And I hear people say that now, and I'm like, then you didn't do them a favor.
No.
No.
That is not a favor when you expect something back.
Yeah. And so that was probably this taking the alcohol out of the equation was just part of the beginning of the journey, And like Sarah was saying, when I learned to step outside of myself and my own needs, and I started to learn how to address the needs of others, that was a huge life shift for me. That was nothing that I had ever really experienced honestly before.
Yeah.
And it took a lot for me to come to understand that, because I thought I was a pretty great guy.
Yeah.
And it turns out I really wasn't. And so,
don't we all think that?
I mean, that's a common misconception. And so I guess it wasn't so much digging deep, it was just like letting go and just saying, okay, well, this is it. This is my truth. I came to understand that when I start to drink, I just want more. This was something that I had in common with these folks. When I start, I don't want to stop.
Yeah.
And I just want more, and that's my truth. And when I make a firm decision to quit for good and for all, I can't stick it.
Yeah.
And I just get myself, I draw myself back to it every single time. So I got to find something bigger than me that's going to give me that same sense of relief and happiness, that I found from that power. Yeah. So doing this work, I slowly but surely came to understand that this power could help me with that. And so I learned to get through problems in my life. I learned to get, by this time my life had become quite a train wreck, and it hadn't fallen apart yet. I still had a house, I still had a car, I still was married and all these different things, but the dominoes had worked. I just hadn't gotten there yet. I quit drinking, but nonetheless the dominoes
kept falling down.
And so anyway, I lost all those things, which was traumatic. And I was in my late 40s back on my parents' couch. After having been what I thought was successful in life. And it was pretty humbling. Yet I was able to get through that. I was able to rebuild and do what I needed to do, and then I got through a divorce. I got through the death of both of my parents. Shortly after that, I got through a lot of hard things. I got through a lot of good things. Whatever it was I needed to drink about, I didn't have to drink about it anymore, because I had these new tools to connect to this new power in my life. The tools that I learned from my friends.
And that's so important, is that, like we were talking about before, the real problem is me. I can't live in my own skin. I need that, what Sarah calls I love that analogy that you do. It's like, I need that, but how do I get that without booze? And, it is going through and working through what are the things in myself that are blocking me from that power.
Exactly.
So that's such a cool story. Thank you so much for sharing that experience. I think for me, in your story, taking out is that, you don't have to be miserable in sobriety. I think it's so often that we hear and that we see people just not drinking and I'm just making it today and I'm just hanging on for dear life and that sucks. And it's so cool for y'all because you're married and you're living free together. And what a cool thing that is. So tell me about y'all's relationship a little bit. Y'all met in sobriety.
We had friends in common, and we were meeting our recovery group. We're in the same group. We meet once a week to just kind of talk about, who needs our help and how to help them better, basically. Right. And then after this meeting, a lot of times we would go out for pizza. And so I had been kind of like had a crush on him, been kind of sweet on him for a while. But, you know, this group is about, you know, being altruistic and helping other people. It's not a dating service. It's where we go to, you know, strengthen our sobriety and help other folks. So, we would go out for pizza, and one of my girlfriends was like, so, you know, how long you and Phil been dating? And I was like, oh, no, we're just friends. We're not dating. And she's like, you go out for pizza, who's paying for your pizza? And I was like, Phil's paying for my pizza. She's like, you're dating. So anyway, that's kind of how we started dating or backed into dating, and it kind of boiled down to my great grandmother gave me a lot of great advice over my life, and a couple of things she said were she talked a lot about being equally yoked, and our spiritual lives were really aligned. It was really about this idea that instead of asking God to fix me, which I had spent many years doing unsuccessfully, I can't not drink, God fix me, God fix me, God fix me. And do I believe that those miracles happen and people get that? Sure, they do. Yeah. What I needed to do was worry about helping his kids, and God fixed me in the background. But what was so cool about he and I is I can talk about that stuff and he gets it. We're like super aligned in that way. And then the other thing that my great grandma always used to say is be friends first.
Yeah.
And we had been friends for about 10 years before we started dating.
That's a long time, yeah.
And so then I think dating and getting married and to understand if there's an alcoholic lady who's in trouble. Yeah. Babe, I know we're supposed to do this or that. And he's like, no, babe, go. I know you got to go. And the same thing, if he's on the back porch with a gentleman, I don't know for a fact that it's, you know, maybe an alcoholic conversation going on out there. It could be business, but I know I can go upstairs and, you know, do some laundry or whatever. And so the fact that we were both really concerned in a very like-minded way to focus on putting the other one's happiness ahead of our own. Yeah. And when we both try to live that way, that part of my job is to consider my decisions, consider what I do, and how does it impact him, and is this going to make him happy? Is this going to increase his happiness? And I feel like he treats me in that way. So, and then also, I always wanted a boyfriend who skis and skis, so, you know.
It was a perfect fit.
There was that. It's like, spiritual, handsome, and you own skis? So, yeah, no, I'm very, I'm very fortunate. I'm very fortunate.
You are. You know, the thing is like, you know, some of us do have, you know, recovered partners, and then others of us don't. Like, my husband's not recovered. And so it is, for him not being an alcoholic, it's very hard for him to understand, like, why do I need to take the phone call with the lady? Why do I need to go help this lady instead of us doing date night? Why, you know, do I have to do all of these things? And so I think it's such a huge blessing in y'all's life to have somebody who really can support you in that and fully understand what it means to, you know, have to go out and do these things. And it's necessary for your recovery and your sobriety and your well-being. Stephanie's husband isn't in the program either.
No, he's not either. He doesn't drink, but he is not actually like recovered or going through recovery or anything. So very similar. You know, doesn't always understand why I need to be gone for 2 hours on a Sunday or why something needs to happen. But we also still kind of learn to work through it. But it's so awesome to see y'all's relationship and how that works, and especially the putting someone else before yourself, like those words sit so true with me, and I love, that's probably my favorite part of your story.
So I want to ask y'all before we leave today, if you had one thing that you would want to say to our viewers, to just encourage them or to give them a little bit of hope or something out of your story or your thinking that you want to say, what would you say to them today?
I think the biggest thing that I've learned in getting sober and in staying sober is to learn how to to ask for help. Please help me. I don't know what to do about this. Deanna, please help me.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen this kind of problem before?
Yeah.
That sort of thing is just to let my guard down enough to say help. Would probably be the thing I would want everybody to know about me is I had to learn to stop being afraid to say
Ask for it. Ask for it. Please ask for it. We've all been there for sure.
Yeah.
We have.
Phil, did you want to say anything?
Yeah, I'd love to. Don't ever give up hope. There is a way out.
Yeah.
There really is a way out. It's no matter how often I thought that I was never going to ever draw a sober breath, and I was just going to die that way.
Yeah.
Today, 16 years later, to know that this incredible gift that was facilitated by these folks for me, that I can go and pass it on to the next person, that's what gives my life meaning today. And I never would have believed that was going to be the case, but it absolutely does. And so contact these ladies. If you're looking for a way out, these ladies have got some solutions. So
yeah, thank you so much, Phil. Yay! And as always, if y'all have any comments or questions, please do put them down below in the notes. Like, share, and subscribe, and then we'll see y'all next time. Bye, y'all.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.